Tell me about what was going through your mind when you wrote that piece. It was after you'd done your stand-up.
At the Kennedy Center, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had this little extra.
I wrote it that afternoon, post the 2 Indias. I had a company called Weirdass Comedy, and we shut down because nobody worked with me. I had 37 employees.
So is there a filter here that says, oh, this is going to lead to an FIR?
Anything you ever thought was going to be the FIR is never the FIR. And it's the thing you never thought was going to be the FIR, which will be the FIR. The learning for me is if talking too much gets you into trouble, keep bloody talking as long as you're able to talk, and that itself will get you out of trouble.
I remember hanging out with you for that one day on the Call Me Bae set. And you said, I consciously do less film and acting because so much of it is just waiting around.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I would rather be on tour for most of the year.
But a director doesn't wait. A director's always doing something. Their mind is always working. I finally realized what a small part of a movie an actor really is. Post the Emmy, I'm like, okay, this is a moment of leverage that I have with the universe or whatever. So I made 5 phone calls that were wish list phone calls. So I called Amir and I said, so it's been a while since Delhi Belly, but I have this movie, and if you don't produce it, I don't think anybody will, because you're the one person I think will get it. He did. So then he kind of let us make it. Whenever a comedian is in trouble in India, by the way, I get a phone call. All right. So, so I'm like,
who's interesting to you in India's space?
I'll talk about young comedians.
Okay.
Uruj, Ashfaq, very, very good. Sumukhi's new show, Hormonal, extremely good.
Yeah.
Aditi Mittal opens for me, and she's got a new hour she's a beast, undeniable comic. There's a guy called Ronak Rajani who does Relationship, who's very, very good. Can I take a second to tell you what's beautiful about my art form, about stand-up? And I think it kind of answers this, and I say it in my show, is nobody really understands what stand-up comedy is from my perspective. Nobody's watching the comedian. They're listening to the audience. That's why you like watching stand-up. You're not watching me. You are listening to the crowd. At my show, I will blow you away. Way better than anything you've seen me do online.
That's such a pleasure. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Obviously, if you're going to sit down with me, I'm going to ask you about politics.
I know you are.
And I know you're going to start off your sentence saying that you are not political, which you've said in the past.
Yeah.
But for a performer of your caliber, who gets dragged into it, and you're commenting on what is going on, is it even possible to be non-political, apolitical? I'm not political anymore.
Let's park aside the fact that I'm a performer. I'm also in my 40s. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's possible to even be in your 40s and be apolitical. The days of like what this law is or what this doesn't affect my life, that becomes less and less and less once you get to your 30s and you get to your 40s, etc. And you just know more about the world. So I don't think you get to be apolitical in your 40s. And then I think you, me, and a politician, where the Venn diagrams meet, is we all kind of deal with the same subject matter. You can't say that about an actor.
Right.
But as a comedian and as a journalist and as a politician, if there's a bridge that is short, or if there is something else, etc., that's subject matter for all three of us, right? So they expect, I guess, you to make truth of it, and me to make light of it, and the leader to make sense of it. Right? But we're still all intersecting in the same subject matter. So we will all be political, much like they will be humorous. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. We're talking about the same thing. So I don't think you get to be apolitical. No.
And so when you're writing, and I know that a lot of the work you do starts with the writing, right?
Yes.
So when you're writing, and for me, 2 Indias was a pivotal point. I don't know, was it a pivotal point for you in your career? Did things change
in terms of my cortisol? It was, for sure.
Are you different after that?
Yeah. Irretrievably different. I don't know if that's the word that applies, but irrevocably different.
How so?
3 things. I discovered what it meant to really connect with an audience. Like really connect. So look, the controversy was the controversy, right? But when that's done, you disappear for a little bit, and in your mind you have you oscillate between guilt and you mourn a career that you have built, because for me everything went away, right, for a good 2-year period of time. But then when I came back, I cannot deny that it was extremely beneficial, in terms of I put a show on sale and it sold out in 1 minute or 2 minutes, and that had never happened to me before. Great. Okay, so you made some ticket sales. But then when people show up for you, now they're showing up with a different kind of energy in the room. There is a connection there. So some of it is, I fought with my family WhatsApp group for you. Now be funny, or I commented for you and I got trolled by 6 people. Now be funny. Or just, I believe what you believe. Now be funny. Or I disagree with what you said. Now be funny. So the connection is much stronger, and the energy of that expectation is much higher. And I also learned that if you can be funny about it, instead of lionizing yourself or victimizing yourself, you can just come out straight out the gate and just be funny about it. It goes away, and that becomes the memorable thing. So I don't think we spoke until after the Emmy.
Yes.
Right? But I didn't do any news interviews when that thing happened. I went away and I came back with a special. I wrote jokes, and I tried to say, no matter how you feel about me, this is still a joke. It's a solid joke. And so I think I also kind of understood what it meant to be a comedian, really.
If I were to take you back a little bit, tell me about what was going through your mind when you wrote that piece. Because it was after, it was after you'd done your stand-up.
At the Kennedy Center, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had this little extra.
I wrote it that afternoon. Yeah. I think everybody's like, he thought of not everybody, whatever the small amount of audience was that consumed it. But Shivani and I were on tour in DC then. It was the end of like a 6-week tour, so you're homesick.
Yeah.
And we were seeing all these monuments, and again I got more homesick. And the Kennedy Center was sold out, and at 2 p.m. I wrote it, and I think I ran it past her at like 2:45, and I'm like, I think I'll do this after the thing. And she's like, huh? And we didn't have a camera. So we got on Yelp and we found a wedding guy.
Okay.
So he shot that. We hired him for like $200. That's why there's a paper in my hand, because I don't know the lines. And we put it up on my YouTube, which was, by the way, very much in the vein of things I've done on my YouTube before. There are 1,000 videos where I talk about things like that. But I don't know why that's the one that kind of did what it did. So it's new material. Maybe that's the lesson. Don't use the Kennedy Center as your open mic
to test out new material.
Test out new material.
And at what point did you, so you did the show, then you walked away. At what point did you open your phone and see?
See, for the first 24 hours, everything's good. That's when all the fans are watching. And then it got, I don't know, 1 million views or whatever. And I'm like, okay, then it seems to be tracking. Then I think somebody edited it and put it up on the news, and then it went after that. So I think it took a good 48 hours or 72 hours for me to really be like, oh shit, we're in a soup here. And by that time I had to go to the Emmys. So it was a very weird, because we were nominated for 4 India. So it was a weird kind of a juxtaposition in life.
What was your process of dealing? Because you overnight, you went from being Weirdass the comic and performer to being Weirdass the hero or Weirdass the anti-national. People had very diverse, like it divided the country down the middle. People either loved you or hated you.
The country really, was it really that large? It was, you're talking of a total of maybe 40 million people who have consumed this thing. 50 million people, if.
Also, let's accept the fact that a lot of people who have hated have not really watched the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because hate is like a little more instant than that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's edited snippets or whatever.
was there a comment or something that really got you down, or were you able to keep this sort of distance at all times?
No, I not even going to pretend to have the composure to no chance. I was just like, first it was like, what the hell, and then there was as I told you, my lawyer's name is Priyanka Khimani, and she gave me great advice. She was just like, there is a void of the internet, and you do not have the voice to compete with this machinery. And a news cycle is 8 days, and a lot of entertainers can get very arrogant in those 8 days and feel like I'm the center of the universe and everybody's only thinking about me all the time, and so I must say something. And then they scream into the void, and then they give themselves another 8 days and another 8 days and another 8 days. And she was just like, please just shut up for 8 days and then we'll take stock. And really strangely, 8 days later it went away, and then in a really weird way, a month later someone said it in parliament. And then a month later, the same anchors who were calling me a terrorist on the news were using it on their news channels as, are there, two Indias, etc., etc. So you really realize...
It became part of the cultural fabric.
Or you just really realize how small it was in that instant of time.
It's in that moment though, like we just had this incident recently where our foreign secretary was trolled because people disagreed with India's ceasefire, and then they went after his daughter. They went after family members. And for me, also as a woman with with a public persona, the fact that it becomes personal and they go after family members and then they say really crude things, it's difficult. However strong you are, from a mental health point of view, it's really difficult to insulate in that moment.
Also, after him having done what I thought was a very commendable, graceful, like tactful job.
And not just that, this man has some 30-35 years of service.
Yeah.
Stellar service track record. You only seeing him now, but he's been working for the country for this long. I mean, myopic nonsense, but I was thinking about, he had to, I think he made his Twitter account private.
Or he disabled comments or something like that.
No, he disabled the whole thing. You could no longer see anything on his Twitter account. And I felt embarrassed and guilty. And I was just like, this is not okay.
Especially when he did such a good job.
Yeah, it's just I mean, for anyone, this is not okay, because I sort of imagine how his family was feeling at that moment and how, his wife and his daughter, and it's just so icky. What's your advice? Because it happens so often.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Far too often to too many people in public life in our country. What is your advice on how to go through it now that you're a veteran?
Even if you're in public life, I would imagine, right? There are people who have placed faith in you. And if you can focus on the fact that that is a gigantic privilege, right? If having read too many comments, you, Faye, buy a ticket to a Weirdass show, and if because of having read too many comments, I am 10% lesser than what I should have been for you, who Ubered or got a babysitter or who tried to find parking or who saved money or who didn't, who looked forward to this experience for 3 months, I'm unprofessional. So at some point you have to make the shift in your head that says reading or doom reading negative comments is unprofessional and it is cheating your audience. I owe it to you that I'm at the top of my mental capabilities when you come into my show, because my responsibility is that you go home flying on a cloud. That's the promise of my show, unapologetically. So if some guy calling me, saying go to Pakistan or saying tu ye wo hai, tu flop hai, tu blah blah blah, means I'm not good enough for you, I'm an unprofessional comedian, and I would say that applies to a journalist and probably a person, who's in public service as well.
That's really well said. Does it weigh on you when you're writing? Because, so is there a filter here that says, oh, this is going to lead to an FIR, let me just leave that out? Or are you saying, hey, no, I'm still the comedian who likes to make people think while they laugh, so I'm going to make them think. Jo hoga dekha jayega.
You can't predict what's going to be the FIR. Sorry, you go insane. Anything you ever thought was going to be the FIR is never the FIR. And it's the thing you never thought was going to be the FIR, which will be the FIR. So that to leave, because that you're not going to be able to predict, right? sometimes there's a part of you that like, okay, in the new special, there's a bit that I do, which is I talk about being a English comedian in India, and that in India we have a post-colonial resentment of the English language, which because we equate English with privilege.
Yes.
Right. Now, this is a falsity. There's a moment where I talk about how one of India's top Hindi comics comes up to me and he's like, bro, you sound too privileged. You're too posh. And then he left in a Range Rover.
Which it doesn't sound like.
It is, right? And that's when you realize the most privileged comedians speak Hindi. The most privileged actors don't even need English, right?
Yeah.
But the comment is, you're not relatable, right? Because your English is, I grew up in Nigeria, you're posh, right?
So I get this a lot also. If you could do this in Hindi, then we'd be talking numbers.
Right?
Do you get to hear that?
I definitely do. But so then I wrote a bit where I'm like, but why do you need to be related to so much? You know what I mean? Like, why should you come to my show and be like, I could have said that. Or I paid money for my own thoughts. Like, so, okay, I'm not relatable, but does that mean I'm not watchable?
Yeah.
Right? So now, look, that is writing that bit at some level is a response to comments.
Yeah.
So one could argue that some comments have affected me in a certain way, and so I've written 5 minutes of stand-up about it. So it does affect you subconsciously.
But is there a self-censorship when you write? No. Because I remember I was doing this show for an international news organization, and we actually worked it into the budget to get lawyers to do S&P, which is, standards and protocol. So they come and look at it, and they'll catch any sort of bugs or problems in the script that could get you into trouble. And then I called this one friend of mine who's a criminal lawyer in Delhi, and I said, here, I'm sending you all of the material. Look at it and tell me if there is an FIR that we filed in Meerut police station.
Yeah.
He said, it's all FIR. And it's all not FIR. It's impossible.
Yeah.
They could just get upset by the color of your shirt. There's no way to tell.
Something I learned from this special is Netflix came to me after Landing, which was the last special. Yes. And they were like, come on, let's do another one. And I was like, I don't know if I have...
You and your privilege.
I was just saying, we won an Emmy together. We should work together again. It was nice of them. And I was like, I don't know what I have to say just yet. Because I've just come out of this thing and I haven't, life hasn't happened a lot yet. But, I think a special is a core feeling. And I think a lot of comedy postures as edge, but is actually joy. And so maybe the core feeling is joy, posturing is joy for once in a special. So they're like, so let's do a special about joy. And I'm like, let's shoot it in 2 different countries. And they're like, cool. Joy is on the table. We sell out the stadium in Mumbai in 20 minutes. We sell out the church in London in some overnight or something like that. And I woke up without a voice the next morning. Gone. Over 6 weeks, I tried everything from England's top vocal doctor to steroids to pundits removing nazar to homeopathy to energy release to Adele's speech therapist to all of that stuff. But the point is, I spent 6 weeks in silence, right? And usually when you go up and you do a special, you're the tightest you've ever been. You've rehearsed 180 shows. So in Mumbai, I performed for 12,000 people cold after 6 weeks of silence. But over that 6 weeks of silence, I kept rewriting the show. And it kept becoming more and more about silence and less about joy. Right? So then Netflix showed up and they were like,
it's a different show.
This is a different show. And I'm like,
edit kaise hoga?
Yeah, but also, I'm like, if a special is supposed to be an authentic snapshot of where a comedian is in life, this is the most real authentic snapshot of where I am in life. But the point of the special ended up becoming it was a special about joy. It was all set. Every idea was thought out. Every joke was thought out. And then for no reason, voice went. So you could play every card in the book right.
Yeah.
And you could be really quiet or you could be really careful and you could tread really carefully and still for no reason, your voice could go away.
Yeah.
So I think the learning for me is if talking too much gets you into trouble, keep bloody talking as long as you're able to talk, and that itself will get you out of trouble. But there is no correct path to this. There's no preemptively protective path to this. I don't think so.
You've actually, you've had a really unique career path.
I mean, to call it a path is a compliment. My career is what the BMC has done with roads at some level. I've kind of fallen into this and fallen into that and jumped over that. Yeah.
How does one find their way in this path? Because on one day, people are chasing you down with FIRs. You're going from one police station to the other, and then you're hosting the international Emmys.
Yeah.
You're winning an Emmy,
Yeah.
right? How do you take yourself from this one point to the other point?
I have an acute ability to be present in what I am. That's a compliment I'll pay myself. So, the largeness of hosting the Emmys or winning one, etc., has yet to kind of dawn. You know, to me, it's very micro. I can tell you what it's like to win an Emmy if you'd like to know, because it's very micro. It is your category comes up, and suddenly one guy will run and put a camera here, right? And then you're smiling, but you're acutely aware that you're on a screen over there, and the smile starts to get weirder and weirder and weirder and more frozen and more frozen. And then somebody yells your name, and you had thought about, like, if I win, how will I make it to stage if there's a chance? And you had decided that there's no way you were going to make it to stage because you were too far back, and then somehow you have made it to stage. And then words are coming out of your mouth. You have no idea. Your legs are shaking. You're dying to pee. Dying to pee, even though you have not hydrated that much. And then I remember getting off, and the first thing that hits you is utter fear that you've forgotten somebody. So immediately you're just paralyzed by fear. I'm like, did I forget Netflix? Did I forget my wife? So then you're trying to find some member of your team saying, did I thank Shivani? Did I thank Netflix? And somebody's like, yeah, you did. And then you are ushered into this room where there's like 100, the junket happens. After that, no recollection of what you say there. The award is much heavier than you think it is. And then you have you very quietly come back to the table that you originally began at. And it was like Shifali Shah and the Netflix people and myself. And we're all dying to scream. But now we have to quietly eat bread rolls so other people can win their awards. So to me, this is what I remember about winning an Emmy is bread roll. And my manager's name is Reg. And at some point, you get off stage and you walk through a kitchen. And I used to wash dishes in Chicago at a place called the Grand Lux Cafe. And in America, they give you a hairnet when you wash dishes. And they have these water jets. That's how you wash dishes, right?
This pressure wash.
Pressure wash these things. And so Reg stopped me and he's like, take a photo next to that with your Emmy. So I remember that the dishwashing station had 5 plates in it that were not washed yet. So to me, it's that. There's no largeness to that moment. So you could call it denial or you could call it whatever, but I'm not thinking retrospectively about how do I juggle this and that, etc. It's very much like
in that moment
kind of a thing.
This show is also about failure because I believe we learn a lot more.
Way more, yeah.
From failure. We can teach a lot more from failure because we're also filling the universe right now with these success stories. And I think it's making young people extremely, everybody feels like they can be a success if there is some money, become a unicorn.
And the success is only validated by internet comments about acknowledging it as a success rather than, really successful people are quiet as hell. Those guys aren't talking about their success at all.
So have you had moments of abject failure in your career?
Yeah.
Tell us.
My first film was a movie called Mumbai Salsa, which Vikram Bhatt had produced. And I was convinced I was going to be the next big thing by them. And we showed up at the first screening and we were told by the theatre owner that there weren't enough people to justify showing the movie. So the screening was cancelled. So we went back. So, that's one. I think it always ends in, I used to work at CNBC for your husband, who was my boss in Mumbai. And, I was on the primetime CNBC News Bulletin with a segment called News on the Loose, which is where my obsession and admiration for journalists has come from. Sorry to digress, but a lot of people don't know what a journalist really, really, really is. I've been on a news floor with that 500 people as kind of their adopted comedian child.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very difficult job. Like, I remember one day we were in the CNBC studio and I used to shoot on a green screen in the corner over here. And yahan par bada news desk tha, where they used to do the main anchoring. And Savio, our studio director, used to talk me through this thing. And my girlfriend at the time would take a train from Colaba station back to Bandra. So she's like, "Okay, I'm leaving office." I went in to shoot the segment at about 4:30. And I saw suddenly two journalists rush in. And they sat down on the main news desk. And Savio said, "We were not doing News on the Loose right now.
Yeah.
Just stay there. Don't get up. You can't cross camera. So I sat there in a corner and they talked about the train blasts that had happened. But I still had my Clearcom or whatever it's called.
EP was still in.
It was still in. So I heard a studio director and reporters break to two financial journalists that there was one more blast and one more blast and one more blast and one more blast. And I watched them break the news to the nation as I just sat in the corner. And these are not like journalists who break that kind of news. They're just anchors who do financial news on CNBC. And at that point, you kind of sit back and go, my God, what a job this is. And how, and I think they went for 2 hours, while I was trying to confirm, and my fiancée had stayed back at work, so she wasn't on that train. But a profound realization of the kind of power that and responsibility that comes with that
responsibility more than
it's really, I've never forgotten that. I truly realized where I was working, what a news channel meant, what a mainstream news channel meant in that moment. So when I see it take certain shapes that it has today, it's heartbreaking because I've been in that ecosystem with admiration for them. I forgot what the question was. Sorry, I got distracted.
Moments of failure.
So CNBC, I was fired because the recession hit. And they were like, no one wants to hear jokes on the news anymore. So we're going to have to let you go, even though you're very sweet and we don't understand what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So it always ends, in some sort of failure, but that takes you on to the next thing. And I think the lovely thing about my job is, if it's good or if it's bad, it's 5 minutes of material eventually. And if it's bad, it's probably going to be funnier.
So you just write about it.
With time, take time to process it properly and then write about it. Yeah.
The interesting thing about the role that the internet has sort of taken since then, it's very different from when we started. For now, for comedians, I mean, you see people do content. It's one video can make you extremely popular, or one video can cancel you. What's your response to the kind of environment that comics or comedians are now are working with?
One video can make you extremely popular for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And the context behind that video is very important. What I tell young comics who have gone viral is, just because they saw your shit for free doesn't mean they're showing up to see you. There's a very big difference between that. And if you want to make people hopefully someday scamper for tickets, you have to be very careful how much you give away for free. And whatever I saw you do on the internet has to pale in comparison to what I see you do live. The worst scenario is if I saw a great YouTube video and then I paid $600 and I showed up and you weren't as good as that video, you're screwed. So for me, I don't put up stand-up unless it's a special at the end.
Right.
But at my show, I will blow you away. way better than anything you've seen me do online.
And also, I mean, that sword cuts both ways, right? Because someone could easily get cancelled.
Yeah.
Because there's some video that goes, viral, and we've seen very young comedians get into all kinds of trouble. Is that from when you look at it, you think, oh, thank God I didn't start in this environment? Or
yeah, it's tough. I mean, you gotta let a 25-year-old comedian be a 25-year-old comedian. You know what I mean? Or just be a 25-year-old girl or boy, which is just not, and I get it. It's a public art form, so you will take the feedback and the break. You signed up for it, right? But you weren't the best journalist at 25. Someone wasn't the best engineer at 25, and they're not the best comedian at 25. So it's a strange amount of scrutiny to go through that early, but it's not over that early either. Like, whenever a comedian is in trouble in India, by the way, I get a phone call. All right. So, so I'm like, if I see a comedian on the news calling me, I'm like, okay, this is either money or advice, one of the two, and I'm happy to give both. But memories are short. Right? Yeah. They say that the internet lives forever, but comedy memories are short. Be fine.
You just tell them that, listen, hang in for the 8-day news cycle.
Hang in for the 8-day news cycle, but also whatever you do next will be watched by everybody post a cancellation. That's when people will come out and watch your shit. Make sure it's damn good. Like, that's what I've told all these boys who've gone through what they've gone through. I'm just like, write about it. Don't be arrogant about it. Don't victimize yourself. Just make sure it's damn bloody funny, because everybody will watch it. And then you'll be fine.
You talked about Mumbai Salsa, right?
Yeah.
That didn't play out at all. But I've been told that you shot for a film even before that. Where you shot for 3 months and they just cut you out of it.
It wasn't, I didn't shoot for 3 months, but I was in a movie called Love Ajkal, which is Saif and Deepika, right? And so my co-director, Kavi, who we just directed a movie for Amir with, if you watch a song called Can We Twist?
Yes.
All right. On the right side of Saif and on the left side of Saif, there are two boys. And one of them is Kavi Shastri and one of them is me.
Okay.
And I kind of started to get known as a comic a little bit. And there was this scene, this role with one scene, right? Oh. And I just really needed the money. I'd been fired from CNBC, I think, at the time, and I just was short on cash. So I remember Imtiaz speaking to me and genuinely saying, bro, this isn't what you need to be doing right now, post Mumbai Salsa or whatever. And I was like, no, I'll do it. So if you see Love Ajkal, 20 feet behind Saif, there are two boys out of focus the entire movie, and that's me and Kavi. In that entire movie. But Can We Twist, we danced.
Danced to Can We Twist.
Quite well, yeah.
And now you're directing.
I just co-directed a movie, yeah. It's called Happy Patel Khatarnak Jasoos. And I play Happy Patel, and it's kind of like a spy comedy. I post the Emmy, I'm like, okay, this is a moment of leverage that I have with the universe or whatever. So I made 5 phone calls that were wish list phone calls to people who, and very blatantly said, listen, I'm very talented and I hope you'll work with me. And and here's what I think we should work with each other on. And 3 of them said yes. But one of them was Amir. So I called Amir and I said, so it's been a while since Delhi Belly, but I have this movie. And if you don't produce it, I don't think anybody will, because you're the one person I think will get it. He did. So then he kind of let us make it. Yeah?
You've had, though, a very interesting relationship with Bollywood, face, right?
The Hindi film industry.
The Hindi film industry. Let's say the Hindi film industry. There's Delhi Belly, which we all loved.
Yeah.
And there are all of these other hits and misses along the way. Do you have a response to the whole outsider, insider? Were you treated like an outsider, or were you just treated like someone with a BMC career that nobody understood? You're like, karta kya hai? Like that.
No, I shortcutted my way in there, very much so. A lot of people don't know this. I have a drama degree, so I've trained as an actor, so I know how to act. I was in a theater working at CNBC. I saw Rang De Basanti, and I was like, I want to go be in the movies. And because I saw Sharman and I saw, and I was like, look at this lovely ensemble. And
that was a great film.
What a great goddamn movie, right? And such good representation for each cast member, etc. So I'm like, oh, it's no longer just hero and etc. etc. Like I might be able to find some stuff. And I made a DVD called Viragra, which was this comedy special that I shot. Spent all my money on it.
Okay.
And there's a guy in Lokhandwala market called Kapil who ran a company called Media Pro.
Okay.
And I made him manufacture DVDs that I thought would look good in a DVD library. And I went to every DVD library between Lokhandwala and Bandra where I knew directors rented DVDs from. And I just gave them 10 free copies. One DVD went to Amir Khan Productions, got me an audition for Delhi Belly. One DVD went to Yash Raj, got me an audition for Badmash Company. So I skipped the Aram Nagar casting, director, championing you circuit. So I was just like, holy shit, I'm in the movies, Yeah.
You are credited though in India for being for someone who built the space.
No.
Come on.
No, not really.
You built the rooms, you did you were our first stand-up comedian.
No, Johnny Lever is our first stand-up comedian. Anybody who hasn't seen Johnny Lever live, yes, he's brilliant in 100 movies. Go see Johnny Lever live. It is a masterclass that you cannot believe. So that's the alpha, omega, etc., etc. Russell Peters, yes, Canadian. Yeah, but still.
No, I mean, so the infrastructure, right? When you were starting off, we didn't have the open mics, we didn't have the rooms. We didn't
in Mumbai, no. Yeah,
we didn't have young people who wanted to become comedians, didn't know what it was until you came around. Most of them became journalists. No, but what is your response to how that space has grown?
It's amazing. Think about how many. It's a viable career option. If you're a young comic, you have a channel, reels, 4 clubs to work out materials.
Writing rooms now.
You get to write for other people. There's you get to maybe look at Sumukhi developed a sitcom around her own voice. You get to do that too. So it's never been a better time. All things aside, it is the best time in the world to be a comic. And given the evolution of where journalism has gone, it's very closely connected, journalism and comedy. It really is. The journalism of today makes it a better time to be a comedian today as well. It does. There's a reason people watch Jon Stewart again when he came back on The Daily Show. To feed themselves something they're not getting from CNN or Fox. And
is News on the Loose coming back?
No chance. Are you crazy? Just me with this thing in the corner. But I think I'm acting in like 6 things now. But maybe when this is done, there is a political comedy show in me. And that'll be a different world at that moment in time. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know if comedy is going to be a real thing. AI comedians and who the hell knows?
Actually, I saw a little
the Google Vivo whatever this thing
of AI stand up.
Yeah, it's terrible. No,
it was terrible. It was not funny at all.
Yeah, but I'll show you some comedians who are worse than that.
So actually, if you look at the environment now, and I know that you've mentored a lot of comedians. Who's interesting to you in India's space?
I'll talk about young comedians because the older ones don't need attention. Uruj, Ashfaq, very very good. Sumukhi's new show Hormonal, extremely good. Aditi Mittal opens for me and she's got a new hour she's a beast, undeniable comic. There's a guy called Ronak Rajani who does Relationship, who's very very good. I saw a show, clips from a show which was 4 Dalit comedians who had done a show together, which I just was one of the most visceral things I'd seen ever. It's just awesome. This is awesome. Great comedy right now.
This is great comedy. When you're writing now, and this is perhaps a little more technical for people who are writing, are you writing for the applause or you're writing for the truth?
I don't know where the applause is.
You don't know where the applause
is? No chance. That you'll know after testing it 6 times. And the applause is different in different countries, and I did 33 countries on the last tour. So I can't predict. Ye wala to, there's no, and in a lot of established markets, it's 50-50 now. If I'm in New York or LA or London, it's 50-50, 60-40 local Indians. So I can't predict. Right now, what I'm looking to do is really scare myself a little bit with what I'm writing.
What does that mean?
Okay, here's an example. I did Carnegie Hall last year. So the next logical step is either do Radio City or do Madison Square Garden, right? I don't want to do either one. Because I don't think it's about doing it. It's about writing the show that deserves that venue. aa jayenge log. If your boy's playing Radio City or something like that, we'll be like, yeah, we'll show up, right? But is it worthy of the venue that you're doing? I might want to write a Broadway show and do 2 months on Broadway instead of Madison Square Garden or Radio City. That's interesting to me, because then that means I have to write a different show, and it can't just be stand-up, and it has to be very personal, and it has to be scary, and it has to be more narrative in its structure. So that to me would be a much more enjoyable writing process than just saying more jokes.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's fantastic. So basically, you're saying that instead of just aiming for, I'm going to do a larger venue, I'm going to do more tickets, I'm going to do a bigger tour, you're saying I'm going to do something I've never done before.
Yeah, for sure. But if you say what you will about my comedy specials on Netflix, there's going to be 4 of them, but you can't compare them to the one before.
Yeah.
Weirdass for India was about nostalgia. As a guy, chai, old monk, Parle Ji. Landing is about patriotism, so this one is about silence. They're very clearly about something. So yeah, it has to be about something that I haven't done before. And then I made a movie, and then I fell in love with direction. So I really, really think I'll do more of that. I really enjoyed it.
I remember hanging out with you for that one day on the Call Me Bae set. And you said, I consciously do less film and acting because so much of it is just waiting around.
Yeah, it is.
And I would rather be on tour for most of the year.
But a director doesn't wait. A director's always doing something. Their mind is always working. I finally realized what a small part of a movie an actor really is.
Yeah.
We treat ourselves like, "Arey, main to blah blah blah," but no, the director's doing all of it, and more than that, Amir, the producer, is doing all of it as well. So we're really, as an actor, you're a really small part of a movie, but there's a feeling you get as a comedian where you're like, I can infect this top to bottom. So like, if you come for a show, I've picked the playlist, I've done the lighting, I've designed the set, the arc of the show, how you will feel. I think of it in those terms. A director gets to do that for the movie, top to bottom.
It's a different kind of addiction.
It's a really, really different kind of addiction. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we were to categorize you, right, and I was having this conversation, you get sort of, you're not West enough for the West.
Not East enough for the East, yeah.
Somewhere you're like gateway to India. You're like India for beginners.
India's not for beginners, apparently.
Not for beginners. Yeah. But is that a sort of branding that you're now comfortable with?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Jo bhi hai, ye hai.
Ye hai.
And I don't think there is an all India artist outside of Shah Rukh Khan. And I don't think there is a all India West kind of I just think it's become really small. Look at All We Imagine Is Light.
Yeah.
As a film, is that in India for India film? No. Is it in India in the West film? No. It just is. It just is.
I mean, the beautiful part about that film is that it's an Indian film where I think it's about 60% Malayalam.
Yeah.
So most Indians can't understand it, but it still works.
It's so good, right? So, but for me, I found my people in terms of ye log aayenge, and that tribe, inshallah, will grow a little bit. And in the next 12 months, I have a Netflix special, a show about God, a theatrical release, an OTT release, and a book. And I don't know if they're the same audience or if they're not, or, but I can play for Ananya Pandey's audience sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I can play for somebody else's audience sometimes as well. I don't have to fit in. And if you consider not fitting in, I think that's a much wider feeling than people who belong. So hopefully I appeal to something in you that doesn't feel like it belongs. And if you're the person who's at the corner of the party, like, oh, fuck, I'm terrified to be here. And will some of these people talk to me? And maybe they won't. Or maybe I should have stayed home tonight. Maybe I'm for you.
Yeah.
As opposed to the life of the party or the host of the party.
Tell me about the book.
And the book is called The Outsider.
Why?
Because
Who's the outsider here?
right. So this is my US agency, and they're like, Veer, it's time to write the book, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's
So
like,
they know you make fun of them like this.
yeah, I do. And I was like, no, I haven't done enough yet. It's not. And they were like, you won the Emmy, you write the book. That's the rule. And I'm like, no. And then I kind of said, this is a core feeling where I'm Indian guy in the West, Western guy in India, Nigerian guy in boarding school in Simla, Sanarian in Delhi Public School, Noida, comedian playing rock festivals with a band, comedian on movie sets, movie set guy in comedy club. It's all about misfit themes. And I think the bulk of people feel that way. So I'll write a book about feeling that way. So it's not about successes. And it doesn't celebrate any chronology of life. It's just like, here's what happened, here's how uncomfortable I was, and here's how scary that was, and here's why it's funny, and maybe it'll be funny to you too.
When does it come out?
November.
How do you keep track of so many different things?
I have a team, we work together. There's 4 of us. We kind of, 5 now. We kind of make that
I
happen.
remember when you pared down and then you said that, okay, these are the 5 people I'm going to work with.
I didn't pare down. I went bankrupt. Like, I'm not even going to... I post the 2 Indias. I had a company called Weirdass Comedy, and we shut down because nobody worked with me. I had 37 employees, and I paid them all through COVID. And then we shut down once the world reopened again, because we had cancellation plus COVID. We didn't make it through that. So yeah, so we shut it down, and then 4 of us, 5 of us.
What was that like?
They are all talented enough where, God blessed, they are all working and all this thing. It's in my book, but I have a wonderful moment where I took 10 of them out for a beer once, and they all knew we were invested in, and we were supposed to get a second round of funding, and then we were not going to get a second round of funding. And I took them out, and we were talking about the speech at the Kennedy Center and all of that stuff. And I apologized to them, and I said, I'm sorry for how this went. Would you rather I hadn't done it? And all of them said no. They were proud of me. So that was, I'm not so proud of awards and all of that stuff, but that evening I'm pretty goddamn proud of, and they're all employed now, and I still work with them on different stuff. So they're all crazy talented people. But yeah, we shut down a company. It's heartbreaking, and I can't imagine what like bigger entrepreneurs go through when they have to shut their shit down. Not fun. But then you write jokes about it.
What was your reaction to what happened with Allahbadia, Samay, Raina, that joke during the attack of the venue?
So I'm in touch with them, because I get called for advice and all of that stuff. And but let me put it this way: when this is going down, I think what I've told you as well is the one thing the comedian wants is to get off the news. It's like, why am I on the news? I want to get off the news so I can just live my life and tell jokes. So I will try and answer in a way that doesn't get them back on the news, because then I'm doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
And I realize that me saying things has traction, right? I've told them, write about it, make sure it's damn funny, make sure you're not a victim, make sure you're not a hero, and make sure everybody on both sides of that coin can laugh about it. But write about it and make a show out of it, or make a special out of it, or make something out of it, which I think will happen. There are people who say shit to get on the news, and that's an industry right now. Look at any mainstream media channel, you'll see an anchor, and underneath them are 9 boxes of people whose job it is to say outrageous shit to get on the news, so that they can then monetize it on the lecture circuit and on the this and that, etc., etc., etc. These are just people performing for their tribe. They don't need to be on the news, and they deserve the freedom to be imperfect and to be 25 years old and to be idiots and say idiotic things. It wasn't meant for public consumption, as far as I know, outside of this thing. The quality of the joke, open to debate. You know what I mean? The quality of the joke, open to any amount of scrutiny. And that's true for any amount of artistic work you put out, but then limit it there, no?
Yeah. I mean, my response to it was cringe and it was crass.
Yeah.
But there is no law against cringe and crass.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's fully legal to be as cringe as you want to. Meet any uncle going for a morning walk, right? You'll get cringe max, right? And it's fully legal. You're absolutely right. The response to that should just be more debate.
Yeah.
And, as an audience member, our Supreme Court has told us repeatedly, if you don't like, don't watch. So
I also think with Samay, he's talented. He's got timing. He's just young. I think if he digs deep and writes about it in a good way, he'll be just fine. I think so. Because there's core talent there to be appreciated. So, yeah.
I was at a women's forum.
Sure.
And someone raised their hand and asked me. And I had put out a video after that saying, I don't believe this is illegal and I don't think we should be going after it in this manner. And someone said, oh, but isn't this an insult to women in India? And I said, rape is an insult to women in India. Inequal pay. The fact that we're not paid the same as our male counterparts is an insult to women in India. The fact that we are expected to still do everything all the time and that working mothers are still held responsible for their child's grades, that's an insult to women in India. I could make a list of things that are a problem. This is not specifically top of my mind as a problem for women in India. So I think that we get lost the internet news cycle, and it's not just the television news cycle, the television cycle that feeds the social media, and then it's a dragon that's eating itself.
I also think it's a youth thing on social media as well, and a young male thing on social media as well. There is a genre of like bro didn't hesitate humor. You know what I mean? And it's a very young male thing. It's like bro didn't bol diya, kind of this thing. And every boy is edgy until a girl or a boy kisses them on the cheek or says, don't say that.
Yeah.
That hurts my feelings. And then bro hesitates a little bit. You know what I mean? And then bro gets some life experience and grows up a little bit.
Actually, speaking of bro didn't hesitate, there's a lot of sort of content on the internet, the Andrew Tateism of the internet, which I personally find very scary. But I want to know what your reaction is to it.
I think it's an industry, very calculated industry of men who peddle cruelty to younger men and peddle it as masculinity to monetize their attention. I think that's really basically what it is, right? And how much of it is performative or how much of it is I don't care and don't quite want to know. But I've worked for very successful men. I've been surrounded by high performing masculinity as such. It doesn't treat women that way, it doesn't treat men that way, and it doesn't treat the world that way. So best case scenario, Andrew Tates are something you outgrow as your hormones calm down and you become older as this thing. In worst case scenario, you don't outgrow an Andrew Tate and you end up voting for Donald Trump. I don't know what the this thing is, but I think it's an industry and they're very consciously doing it. It's the same as your motivational industry. There is a very, there is a suck it up, motivational podcast industry as well, which is very, very clear what they're doing.
Honestly, I feel also a lot of the anger that we have on social media against young people doing silly things, which you have to have an age to do, is because we don't have the guts to be angry with the real people of the real thing. Right?
Yeah.
So then, so-and-so faked her death for a marketing program. Let's all just be really angry with her. Like, how does that even change your life? It makes no difference to you.
Yeah.
But you don't want to, and you don't have the guts to be angry with the people who are really changing your life. And so we misplace that anger on very young people who are just being young.
We also don't have to own our anger, no? Is the thing that we have an anonymous persona.
Yes.
I tweeted this the other day. I was like, please say whatever you want about the physical appearance of an actor or actress. Bas apna photo saath mein dal do. That's it. Like there should be a rule. कि आप हाँ बोलो इसका ये उसका वो देख उसका बॉल्ड स्पॉट उसका समथिंग उसका लिप्स उसका बस साथ में अपना फोटो स्प्लिट स्क्रीन में डाल दो उसके साथ with your real name and then you can say whatever the fuck you want. But itna to then own your hate.
I've told somebody that people walk up to me at airports and malls and restaurants or whatever. Never once in my 20-odd career with 10 years of the internet has anyone said anything rude ever to my face.
But you have a very intelligent audience. That's why I'm here. So, you know what I mean? To try and get their eyeballs. But
so the people who say really mean things in the comments never show up in person.
And by the way, same person, the person that met you at the airport probably is also tweeting or saying mean comments under an alias, etc., etc. It's just not like Mike Tyson had a great quote, not great behavior, but he said social media is a place where you get to say the shit that I would punch you in the face for in real life. Yeah. Which is at some level
so true.
Kind of true.
Actually, you know, when you say that you're not supposed to know everything and it's okay to not know. But I remember when I started off as a journalist in that CNBC newsroom, one of my seniors told me that as a journalist, you should never be afraid to ask a stupid question.
Yes.
That's the basis of your entire profession, is that you should go there and ask that question, because you're not supposed to seem intelligent by the question you're asking. It's the answer that you're interested in from the person who's qualified to give you that answer.
Yeah. And also I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass or whatever, but the model that you guys follow and your team follows on Instagram, etc., there is a humility to the way that you approach putting information out there that you could very easily avoid. I think you have enough credible years of journalism behind you, and you have enough of a reputation and a following in the market where your face could be front and center on everything, and it could be Faye's opinion on everything, etc., but you give us information.
Yeah.
And it is distilled in a very, the quality I'd say is humble manner, which I think is largely missing.
Yeah, so because a part of the entire process of arriving at what we do, which was when I left television, I spent some time saying, okay, what kind of work do I want to do? Because this will be my legacy. It was, we're talking to intelligent people.
Yeah.
And you vote, you drive, you marry, you have kids, you do all of these things. You're fully capable of deciding for yourself if this is good or bad.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you. So it's actually not my job. My job is to actually just tell you, Ajit, this happened today. Now you decide how you want to feel about it. That's it.
I mean, we did a show together where I play the opposite of you. You know what I mean?
You're so good. So good.
But I want to be able to watch a mainstream news outlet, and I think the next war in the world is going to be truth versus truth. Our truth versus your truth versus somebody else's truth, and creating alternate pockets of reality for everybody. That's the war that's happening, and it's just incredibly dangerous to not have enough reliable sources of truth.
I mean, we experienced it a few weeks ago when we were in conflict with Pakistan, but the amount of misinformation And the amount of videos that had been doctored, that had been put out saying this is happening now, this is happening. And so I remember my team and I were sitting there, we were sitting at night, we all work from our respective homes. And so we're putting out the news. And I was getting flooded by WhatsApp messages saying, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? So everybody who knows me was asking me, is this? And the amount of crap that they all, needed verified was unbelievable. So where is all of this crap coming from? None of this is true. And we then found it was coming from television.
And then, by the way, the foreign secretary who's doing such a good job of being factual, non-performative, humble, and just really graceful and tactful, you troll that guy.
Because you live in some jingoistic, machoistic world where you are just like, oh, phod dalenge. I mean, also restrain is power.
Yeah.
Just because you think you can beat someone up doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
That's not the world we live in.
I don't have that thought very often. but also, I mean, Faye, I've worked in a newsroom. You worked in a newsroom. We have both met these people off camera.
Yes.
Right? And we also know that a lot of these journalists who are not that person off camera.
No. They hide under the table if we're given a chance. Yeah.
I remember doing the Harvard India conference.
All
right. And I was the, roast everybody at the end, closing act kind of a thing, etc., etc. But these are opposition, ruling party, opposition ke journalists, ruling party ke journalists, ye wo, etc., etc. Sab jaake, you should see them outside the country.
I know. I was at that conference.
Right?
Yeah.
You should see them.
Yeah, we
so,
like
party kar rahe hain, drinking chal raha hai, sutta pee rahe hain, baat kar rahe hain, and I'm just sitting there like, you're like, hum to, forgive my this thing, like, where?
No, but they're like that. I mean, they're like that in studios also, where they're sitting and just like yelling at each other.
Pura game hai.
To break.
Yeah.
And then they're just chatting about, oh, did you go to that thing? Did you go to this thing? And have you seen that? And have you seen this?
So I just sat back at that conference in the corner. I'm like, oh, we are idiots.
Yeah.
They're all in on this thing. It's just what they do.
It's really important. And if there was one thing that I could tell people who are, doom scrolling on the internet and just watching reels and having it enter your mind and influence, is that everything is performative.
Yeah.
Everything is for the numbers. Everything is for the interaction.
Yeah.
And you need to know that, because when you go and you watch a film in a movie theater and you pay money and you switch off your phone and you sit there for 3 hours and you submit to that experience, you know that they have made a film for you to watch, that it's a business proposition. I feel that people don't know that when they're watching stuff on their phones. That this is a business proposition. This person is saying this to make more money.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because it's true.
Can I take a second to tell you what's beautiful about my art form, about stand-up? And I think it kind of answers this, and I say it in my show, is nobody really understands what stand-up comedy is from my perspective. Nobody's watching the comedian. They're listening to the audience. That's why you like watching stand-up. You're not watching me. You are listening to the crowd. You're listening to laughter leave a body and it enters yours. Because that is the connection that you are responding to. What I always say is, the scariest thing to, and I say to comedians also who are truth to power comics, I'm like, the scariest thing to people in power is not the words that come out of my mouth, it's the noise that comes out of the audience's mouth. Comedians just say words. The audience tells the truth. That's what I think stand-up is. I think that's why people like watching stand-up, is to sit and feel 3,000 people with you feel the same emotion. Because laughter is, it's a surprise. Do you know what I mean? When a joke hits you, if it hits you right, it's a surprise. It's as surprising as sneezing. It's as surprising as coughing. You know what I mean? And so to feel that with 3,000 people is a visceral, beautiful connection that perhaps only music has as an art form, and then stand-up comedy. But everybody is like, "Arey, comedian ne ye bola, comedian." Audience ne bola. Audience is what told you if it was true or not. That's what's beautiful about this thing. Is you think the comedian speaks, the audience speaks way louder than the comic.
That's beautiful. I'm going to leave that there. Veer, thank you so much for spending time with me. Such a brilliant, brilliant conversation. I wish you very, very good luck.
Hey, I'm always a fan. Please keep doing what you do. We need you more now than ever. So, yeah.
Thank you.